a more immersive sports bar,
Totally.
right? To see an experience that they cannot see even at a sports bar.
Or a more immersive fan experience event, like a screening of Harry Potter, and they're serving butter beer, and there's some other elements from, the scent to taste to making it a full experience.
I messed up. I should have had this conversation. No, that's where we were talking last week about what there should be great ways for brands to activate with audiences with these new immersive spaces, and what ultimately does that look like? Like, to your point, like butterbeer or like the Matrix. I saw they had some crazy stuff for like the Matrix viewing.
Well, you know who I think has done that exceedingly well and probably were first movers in the space? Fashion brands. Okay. Louis Vuitton, Chanel, they've done these traveling experiences where you could immerse yourself in the world. That started with scent, light. Some of the most iconic moments that were captured on Instagram, they became places where they were like Instagrammable, right? But really, sure, they were just immersive experiences in the early days. And then you got to look, feel of what those were. And I think fashion brands nailed it from the start.
Do you think that there's a world where, like with Cosm, then that it's like it could be a next evolution of then like fashion, right?
100%.
Okay.
100%. They're already doing it. It's just not very mainstream. It's for niche. It's for fashionistas, those girls, that audience. But yeah, once it expands, certainly.
Interesting. Because that's where I was like with Cosm. A lot of people for a long time were talking smack about the Sphere. But they're like, it's not going to work. Everyone spent multi-billion dollars on a huge LED wall dome. But it really feels like it's come into its own as generally a place that you do these type of concerts or experiences. And where I see that there's an opening for brands is that being able to access that type of immersive experience where people are more wanting to do IRL activities, right? The increase of IRL is on the rise right now, where we can ultimately take that. How do you connect with still online audiences who still are at home but have that FOMO and want to be there and want to be involved with others around them?
You live stream it.
That is the secret. Well, we're live on this week's run of show. Thank you for being on. I'm Cody. We have Jezlan.
Hey, Cody, thanks for having me. I'm Jezlan Moyer, president of Georgia Entertainment, and longtime friend and partner.
I'm super stoked that we have you on the show this week. Really excited. It's been a long time coming. Welcome back to the studio. Like you said, you haven't been here in a hot minute.
Okay, so for those...
I'm just a kid with a dream, okay? I'm trying my best. I'm just trying my best to make it work. But I'd love to go in for audiences who are watching. I'd love to give a little bit of background about you, how you joined Georgia Entertainment, what Georgia Entertainment's about. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Okay. The Cliff's Notes version.
Sure.
And apologies in advance because I'm one of those who say, okay, this is going to be a short story. It's a long story. I'll keep it quick to the best of my abilities.
I haven't really even heard this myself.
Okay.
So that's why I'm locked in.
Let me set the scene for you.
Okay.
First and foremost, Georgia Entertainment, right? We're a non-traditional media company. We've got a site. We've got weekly newsletters, different audiences for those, whether it's, aspiring creators or business owners, industry stakeholders, politicians, you name it, right?
Yep.
We serve an audience of the creative industries, film, music, gaming, esports, fashion, etc., right?
Sure.
And in that, we do events. It's all about community, building that audience, fostering connection and opportunity, right? So we go around the state. We like to say we rally locally and then we recruit globally. We do events like Sundance, Cannes, TIFF, South by, making sure that we're recruiting on behalf of our partners. Who are our partners? Well, studios like you, creators, Assembly, Trilith, resource providers like Real Supplies, or post-production studios like Whiskey Tree, Moonshine, etc. Think the full ecosystem of the creative industries and those who have roots right here in Georgia. Now that's Georgia Entertainment, right? Where does Jezlan come into play? I'm the president of this small but mighty media company. And like you, I'm just a kid with a dream.
I mean, fair. I mean, valid. All right, bring it back around.
Yeah, full circle. My dream was to be a storyteller, right? Because I envisioned that giving me the opportunity to make other dreams come true. I've done that through different iterations of my career, whether that was in fashion or in entertainment, doing red carpet interviews, hosting my own morning talk show in Los Angeles, or fast forward to my work here in Georgia. So I was living and working in Los Angeles for 15 years, and I had a live streaming daily talk show. So we were first movers in the space.
Okay.
And we were streaming live on Facebook, on Instagram.
Facebook? Like circa 2016 go live?
Yeah, but that's how it started.
It
and
was.
then,
It's true.
historically, Cody, we were the top 10 on Facebook ongoing. Why? Because we were first movers. That entire first year, then we live streamed the audio on a podcast, right? We were figuring out ways to work that algorithm. I knew you'd be very proud of me in that.
To my own heart. Yes. As someone who also was the first mover to live streaming for Facebook, I was like, that's how I got my start.
That's how we got our start. Yeah. And then the audience grew. There was a need for this, right? For a live streaming, positive focused entertainment lifestyle talk show in the morning in Los Angeles, right? When people were doing their media circuits, they needed that. They had it in New York. They didn't have it in LA. They only had news. So I filled the need. I started streaming it live. And then I thought, okay, well, we can go way better than streaming on IG or Facebook. Let's build our own app. Mm-hmm. Let's stream this on Roku. Let's stream this on Apple TV. And we did. We had the incredible backing of an executive producer who believed in the vision and wanted to work the algorithm, right? Okay. Test it, arbitrage, unfair advantage. LA was our backyard. And we just started increasing the impressions, which increased awareness, visibility. Next thing, we're booking MTV and huge, celebrities. Next thing you know, I'm live streaming from the Emmys, right? So it just grew and it expanded. So I know live very well because I did it for myself and I built my career on it.
Sure.
Cue COVID, studios closed down, right? Nobody's connecting. There are no more events to live stream from. Can't stream my show. Studio shuts. I get a call from a producer in Atlanta. Georgia was the only one working. They said, we need younger, fresher talent for a live streaming show. Can you hold 8 hours?
8 hours?
8 hours,
That's
Cody.
a rally.
8 hours.
That's a rally.
4 was my record. 4 was my record for, a red carpet that was 4 hours long before a major, award show. It's like, all right, I'll try. Fly to Atlanta, do the, the camera test, get the gig. And I start splitting my time between Atlanta and Los Angeles.
Okay.
And I'm holding 8 hours. No commercial breaks, by the way. I'm very proud of this.
No commercial breaks?
No commercial breaks.
Oh, my God.
Home shopping for fine jewelry.
Home shopping for fine jewelry.
Antiquities and designer handbags. A language I know very, very well, okay? And I had a great time from a small studio, right here in North Georgia. Sure. And my friends from Los Angeles, producers, directors, actors, everybody was working here.
Yeah.
And I really just connected with the heart of the industry here in entertainment and through mutual connections I know in LA. So you should start following Georgia Entertainment. At this point, it was just a site.
Okay.
And a newsletter. And like you, I'm also an entrepreneur, not just a kid with a dream, but I've got to build the business myself, right? Come on. We're not making it easy on ourselves. And so I connected with the founder and CEO, Randy Davidson, who you know very well. And I said, Randy, I've got a business proposal for you. I wanted to be more than on-camera talent. And that was going well, certainly, but I wanted to build something for myself and really create opportunity here because I saw the future of entertainment happening in Georgia.
Sure.
And I knew firsthand what was keeping LA stuck and what was about to happen. I could see it. I could feel it. And he says to me over lunch, he's like, no offense, but you're a little too LA. And
dang.
Yeah. I mean,
well, if you've ever met Randy, I can kind of see.
Exactly. You see where this is going.
Yeah, I can kind of see where he's going.
And I said to him, respectfully, that is exactly what you need, my friend. And we tell the story often, and it's evolved to be he's the Georgia and I'm the entertainment, right?
I also see that.
Right.
I also see that too.
But in that, I had a vision for this company that would take it to live streaming, building out different content verticals. I convinced the man to give me a shot, kept sending business proposals. And fast forward to, 3.5 years later, I'm the president of the company. We have scaled tremendously from what was just an online site with a weekly newsletter to a variety of different newsletters, events, a global brand awareness and presence, real brand equity, and solid partners that continue to drive revenue, not only for us, but for our friends, our family, our
For sure.
community here in Georgia. So it's been really interesting. And through that, just continuing to rally and champion for the industry any way I can, whether, that's on camera or behind the scenes or publishing a magazine.
Yeah,
Exactly. I found it to be so satisfying. So I promised this was going to be a short story. It was a very long one, but there you have it, Cody.
No, but it was thorough, and I appreciate it. I did not know about the live stream handbag 8-hour. There's a lot of streamers that can't do that. I was like, have you ever considered just doing IRL streaming? Because if you can go hold on for 8 hours, I bet you could probably have an audience of just watches you all the time and monetize that.
I could.
Especially Georgia Entertainment, as you guys go and tour around the great state of Georgia with a lot of the events that you guys are doing.
Yeah, and around the world. Honestly,
the world.
I'm really trying to do that where I can bring that live experience to wherever we are.
Yeah. One thing I'll say about you guys, I'm just so appreciative of, is how much you guys have rallied the Georgia community around each other and brought everyone together. Before I met Georgia Entertainment, I think the biggest complaint that I had was that there wasn't a community that was built for creators, executives, producers, everybody behind the film industry that ultimately makes it tick. There was nowhere for all of us to connect, and you guys within 3 years have really built that, and you rally and champion Atlanta. So I just have to thank you guys for the hard work that you guys have done on that. I do want to pivot into here. You obviously bring Georgia to the international stage, but I think a lot of people here in Georgia don't understand how the international stage relates to Georgia. I'd love to hear from you how with Cannes, with you guys have done also Sundance. You've also done Toronto, I think is the one that you did, the film fest there. I'd love to hear how Georgia's positioned for that, and ultimately what's the conversations that are taking place there that we need to hear here.
I'm so glad you brought this up because it's a conversation we have all of the time.
Sure.
When we're promoting going to Cannes or for our upcoming activations for Toronto that we're about to announce. So many people in Georgia.
So that's coming. Sorry.
That's coming. No. We've been no, that's Toronto year 3. We've already been to Toronto twice.
Okay.
So you're not wrong on that. But it's so important because we are going to advocate for the creators here. And yes, recruit new business and opportunity to the state or to Atlanta. It's so important to have a presence at these festivals, to open our doors, to shake these hands, to say, hey, this is the infrastructure we have in place, like film quality services or film quality studios or Real Supplies or Hall Booth Smith, legal firms, accounting firms, finance, distribution, post-production, right? There's a full ecosystem here in Georgia. And if we're not out there talking about it, how are they supposed to know? How are they going to come and find us? So, under the umbrella of our media company, our community, our partners can come along and connect and participate, link arms, link hands and say, hey, we are Georgia Entertainment, right?
Yeah.
And welcome that business opportunity back to the state because that is what's, employing a lot of the workforce, right?
Sure.
Is the productions that are coming to the state. Now, LB, we're not just production services, right?
Sure.
We want to do what we can to foster that IP and development right here in the state. And I'm sure we'll get to that later. But it's really important for us to go to the world and have that conversation, have panel discussions, really connect and be able to be an opportunity, a liaison, if you will.
What's the major conversation that was happening at Cannes this year that you feel that content creators and studio producers need to hear?
Okay. I'm so glad you asked that. Variety called me and asked me the same question. I was thrilled, right? The phone rings. Hi, this is Variety. Hello. This is the call I've been waiting for my whole life. You're calling me? And they wondered the exact same thing. They said, in preparing for Cannes, we're going to do a focus on Georgia. Let's do a production update. And their questions were targeted towards the downturn in production, not as much economic impact, right? Okay, we
Yep.
know all of those
I didn't know
things,
that.
right? Yeah. But I said, what you're missing here entirely is the story.
Yeah.
And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, how are we shifting gears? What are we doing to embrace, to innovate, to make sure that there's vertical integration, right? I mean, we are actively pivoting with the industry.
Yep.
And everyone needs to be aware of that. It's not just a downturn in production in Georgia. I'm sorry, facing the U.S. in its entirety.
Yeah.
So let's not point fingers there, and let's just talk about what every single state, what every single
So I agree with
community,
that.
yeah, can do to shift. So I say all that because, that was really kind of the sentiment going into that festival, particularly, right? And the sentiment that I heard time and time again, we welcomed over 1,000 different producers, filmmakers, creators, brand executives, studio executives globally.
Sure.
To the official Georgia Day at Cannes, to our soiree, to our series of activations. And they were saying, Georgia's stable, number one, right? We know Georgia has a great reputation in workforce, first and foremost, matters to us, right? So props to all of you who have been powering the creative industries right here in Georgia, because that reputation is carrying.
Sure.
It really is. That's great news. 2, tax incentive, boy, it's still pretty great. And in fact, you've made it more effective and more efficient. Other states, which shall remain nameless, you know who you are, that have gotten a lot of that work, especially in the Northeast, promising bigger tax incentives, actually haven't delivered on those incentives.
Sure.
It's not being applied in the same way. And they're all backed up because they can't get those tax credits out fast enough. Now, I know it sounds boring, tax credits, but that matters so much because that's what's really affecting the policy and the bottom line for these producers. And that's what's driving business abroad or back to Georgia. So a lot of people who are frustrated with being overseas or being in the Northeast and not seeing what was promised want to come back to a place where they know the crew is fantastic.
Yeah.
They know the infrastructure is world class, right? And they generally like the industry here. That's exciting.
For sure. You're seeing a rise of so one thing that I just read today on LinkedIn was that AMC is having the best year than they've had in the last 100 years of business, which is incredible. But a lot of that, I think, is driven from the small creators, the obsessions, right? That are the sleepers right now that are low budget, high return, right? That people are seeing these authentic stories and then resonating with it. What are you seeing on the studio level, talking to other studios here about these either large, big budget or smaller producer creators, and how are those studios trying to leverage that?
Okay, this is a very hot conversation right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's in 2 parts, and most people are missing that. So I want to preface this because studios have tried to hire and cast based on followers, right? We all know this.
Sure.
So they're hiring, Instagrammers or TikTokers that have over 150K plus, rah, rah, rah. They're not seeing returns in the box office. It didn't work, right? Okay.
That's valid.
It's
That's
valid.
Yeah.
It's valid. They were getting paid for jobs that they didn't know how to do for an audience that they had to serve a different audience in a way, in a medium that wasn't their own, and it didn't translate to box office sales. So if you look at the past 4 or 5 years, and that's what these conversations from the experts that were, in panel discussions at Cannes or at South by or at Sundance, this is what they're saying. Now, the difference though, obsession, that starts with their own ideation. Those creators were part of the process from the beginning. Those audiences were part of the process from the beginning. They're rallying for that project, not because somebody they follow was cast in a project that's not their own and part of the same stuck studio system to go to a place that they don't want to be in the first place. They want to cheer from you or you
Sure.
from the beginning. And that's the key difference in this.
I think that there's something to be said, though, that there is a little bit of a thread of the needle. And the reason why I say that is if you look at Sinners, for instance, very much a creator who stuck to their guns and was like, I have this creative that I don't really care what the studio says. I'm going to die on this hill for my creative. And then it was like successful. You've seen folks like Mr. Beast, which he had he's had okay numbers on season 1. He's had way better numbers on season 2 of Beast Games as ultimately a creator who's kind of transitioned away. And I mean, you could argue that he's kind of maxed out YouTube as far as he can max it, maybe continue to rise, but then is moving over into more of programmatic, seasonal reality show, linear television, right? I think that there's a world where some of these creators, depending upon the creator, can make that switch. But I'll agree with you that not every creator can make that switch. We had a show that we even did here on the Haunted House. And while the Haunted House was really good, we had a creator who has a large following who had never worked with a production crew before. And so he was stuck at the scale in which that he was used to working in, meaning that like he wasn't used to having a producer who could sit on set and then take orders from him instead of him being like, oh, there's something broken with the show, I have to go fix it, right? I can just go lean on the producer and we can find other creative ways that doesn't interact like the actual creative of the show. And I think that kind of expands to your point to like larger films. Just because a creator can create on YouTube does not mean that they are going to be format friendly to a larger screen that can weave the narrative. But I think there are some creators who can do it.
Or that their audience cares.
Sure.
That's
I can agree with that too, yeah.
But it's exciting to see what some of these traditional studios are doing to embrace the creator economy, to evolve to be in a place where they can help foster, share resources, work with them, foster that talent, or make sure that they do get them a producer who can make it make sense for them and their audience.
I agree. I have a couple of questions that I had that I thought would be good to ask, more of a rapid fire segment. We're kind of testing this out as like a different segment of the show. You're kind of the guinea pig on this, but I think some of these are pretty good and line up with what exactly we're talking about right now. What is the biggest lie traditional media still tells itself about creators?
That they're bad in business. I hear it time and time again. Well, creators don't know how to do business. Actually, they're some of the savviest entrepreneurs on the planet right now, and they're the ones that are creating the future economy. So I would strongly encourage you to rethink that, is my answer time and time again.
Fair enough. What is one belief about the future of media that you would absolutely die on a hill for?
Just one that I'm going to absolutely die on a hill for?
I mean, you can. Well, you don't have. It doesn't have to be one. It could be a couple. Like, I could expand it, but you can choose one of them to talk about because there's a rapid fire question, right?
Film is not dead.
Okay.
And you can take that in a myriad of ways, right? Whether you're Kodak and you're thinking hard print, 16 millimeter, the art of film is not dead. Sure. The art of storytelling is not dead. Now, is it evolving? Certainly, but one is not replacing the other. Creators are not replacing the art of film. I think that there's an opportunity for them all to exist, and more we're seeing the next generation of creators want to embrace more analog systems that give a different sense of texture and our medium onto themselves. And these creators want to learn that. They want to learn how to shoot on film and how to tell these stories and then give them that AMC experience, right? I think we're finally starting to see it come full circle.
It's interesting you say that because there was two things I just watched today. One was an interview with Tom Cruise about how he specifically chooses lenses from the 70s and 80s and how he talks about how the lenses all have a specific character and have a specific look and feel. And that he looks for those lenses that ultimately drives the shot and the color that he wants to portray on screen. I think the same argument can be said for IMAX. And even now, there was a live streamer. There was a popular clip like 3 or 4 months ago. We've even talked about it on the show where a dude connected a camcorder and then he streamed live from Twitch through like the old like VHS camcorder thing. Remember that, Nick? That went live for a while, and then people were like, "Oh, retro's cool now," and I'm like, "Well, pendulum goes back and forth. It's full circle. Like here we are going back to our analog, synthwave days."
Exactly. I mean, like, for how long did people refuse to want to have a lens glare in there or any sort of glitch or grain? They wanted crystal clear, and now they're live streaming from
Except
what, a PS2? Like,
Yeah.
what?
Except maybe J.J. Abrams. He loves his lens flare all the time. I don't know if you've watched like any Star Treks. there is a lot of lens flare.
I'm a huge J.J. Abrams fan. Okay.
I'm afraid of J.J. Abrams too. I'm just calling out that this man does lens flares like it's his job. You know what I mean?
I feel like he saw, like, he was raised on old Spielberg, and then he was just like, everything now will
That's
be.
fair. I want to go back because we were talking about this going to the creators, and that film is not dead. Are audiences becoming less patient, or are storytellers simply failing to earn their audiences?
Both. Okay. Hands down, both. Audiences are less patient. Yes, obviously, because we can scroll and we can TikTok, etc. Right? We're getting inundated with various forms of information and screens in any given moment of our lives, right? And I think so many creators are focused on just solely capturing that moment of attention rather than keeping the attention for a long time. Like those creators in the beginning of the conversation where you're like, you hold 8 hours? Yes, I hold 8 hours. They're training for 45 seconds, right? So there's a yes and.
Sure. Last one I got is what becomes obsolete first? The traditional pilot, the 30-second commercial, or the press junket?
The press junket.
Okay.
Hands down. And I hate saying that because I'm in media. And some of my favorite Hollywood memories were press junkets, right? The FYC setups that Netflix did for us in press and media so we could see and experience the show, right? We don't need that anymore. People have direct access to the producers, the writers, the cast themselves, and those people are telling the story. Now, I love the art of a press junket because having somebody have that traditional interview and conversation through a different lens, if you will, really does make a difference. And to sound all ChatGPT, it matters. But that's going to be the first to die.
But I would also argue that maybe it's just evolving, because when you look at like, we were just having this conversation off camera right before you came, that you have places like Hot Ones, right? Where that is now what would be considered a press junket, right? Where they're bringing on an actor, and yeah, it's about hot wings, but ultimately they're there to promote either their movie or the next thing that they got coming, right?
For sure. I guess I'm thinking about a press junket from a traditional definition. Press and media appearance, those aren't dead. Sure. Those are only going to get bigger and better. I'm thinking about, and this is going to date myself here, but where they're setting up in, the Beverly Hills Hotel, and they're in a conference room, and they've got their team and their set, and they're rotating media through. That's done and dusted.
Interesting.
But press appearances, everybody's got to do Joe Rogan now, even the president. So yes, press and media tours are not dying. In that case, then the 30-second commercial would be my follow-up.
So then to your point about press junkets, and everyone has access. And as someone who's in media, and the whole thing that we're doing here is providing access to those conversations to facilitate to others, right? How do you evolve? Is it like a Hot Ones or a Mythical Kitchen where it's a creator show that then you're bringing on other people onto to then have those conversations? And how does ultimately that evolve for you?
The same way it did for me personally, right? Yeah. Becoming the destination, not just the voice. So it's not just having a media outlet, but becoming the media voice and personality that people want to hear from as a part of the experience, whether that's Hot Ones or, a variety.
I'm going to see Randy eat hot wings at some point. I think that would be its own content.
Randy, not me.
I'm just saying, Randy, if you're watching this, that would be a fun press segment.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely be the, riding in cars or the coffee talk. But yeah, it's becoming the destination unto themselves.
Interesting. I want to pivot the conversation to my topic that I wanted to cover this week. I'd love to get your take on it. The topic that I had was that there's been this almost vertical content takeover. We've obviously hinted and discussed it earlier in the conversation, but the news that I saw in this last week is that Most Valuable Promotions, which is Jake Paul's boxing promotions company, just signed an exclusive deal to stream the entire boxing match on TikTok, nowhere else. So there's no now linear alternative. If, excuse me, ESL, for instance, they do a vertical integration of a TikTok stream now, where they're also doing like a horizontal for Twitch, but now a native TikTok, like, what is it? What's the format? The 9 by something? I'm blanking out. 610 by 19 and 19 by 6. Yeah. So they're doing a vertical integration of it and then showing it natively for TikTokers. I wanted to talk a little bit about how vertical live streaming is and vertical content is taking over, and maybe what are the learning lessons that creators can, or independent filmmakers feel that they should be doing in order to take advantage of what we're seeing socially.
This is really interesting conversation because I don't think vertical is just fully taking over.
Yep.
It's certainly beyond emerging. It's its own art form unto itself. It's its own distribution platform. No one's going to argue that. I think the interesting conversation is how it's impacting independent creators and filmmakers and storytellers and brands,
Okay.
right? But we had this conversation at our last South by event with an independent filmmaker who was based in Georgia, shot an entire feature both horizontally and vertically, and felt the need to do that. Now, he was really a first mover in this space, right? Because you're now shooting one or the other, not both. It's going to affect the entire scene. In essence, it affects the story.
And then presented it both as like separate mediums.
He did both. And so it's really interesting because independent creators and filmmakers are having that conversation. Studios are having that conversation. Well, how do we do both? Do we need to do both? Or are we only servicing one audience or another? Right? So it's interesting. I don't think it's too soon to be able to know whether or not that's really going to be necessary. But there's definitely a push-pull happening right now.
The one concern that I have for them exclusively providing a stream just for TikTok and then nowhere else is that if you look at either Twitch, YouTube, going back to old school linear, there's programmatic advertising models and sponsorship models that have already been developed and then made sense. And the numbers and the engagement, they already have all that model worked out and backed up. When you're looking at something like TikTok, TikTok is short form, but a lot of people complain that it doesn't get the engagement numbers of other social media or linear platforms. And so the question that I have mainly around using is just the only platform is that can they build a sponsorship model that then sponsors are going to rally behind and they're going to get the same amount of dollars that you would from like a traditional or any other horizontal service?
No. And I don't think they want to or need to. And this is what's going to make or break the success of all of this. TikTok is doing it solely for TikTok. TikTok isn't doing it to make any other sponsor dollars. In fact, they anteed up so much money to get exclusive rights that it's essentially, F you, we're not trying to make any money from anywhere else. And the production doesn't need to make any more money from anywhere else because they got everything from distribution. It's completely disrupted the model from the beginning. It's never going to need, in this case, traditional sponsor dollars. The only opportunity really is ad placement that's going to have, or product placement that's going to have conflicts with the entertainers themselves, because Jake Paul or whoever's in this fight already has product deals, right?
Sure.
So it's whoever they have innately in their own personal deals that's going to win from this, maybe. And what could they do? TikTok shops off of it, right? But still, that platform in and of itself is the winner and the brand who can sell the merch. but they can't traditionally advertise. And I don't think they'll ever build a model that's comparable to what exists for linear or any other platforms.
So how do we so I don't want to say drive the wedge, because you talked about it, is that like horizontal, there's obviously audiences for both now. You have vertical audiences of everyone moving onto their phone as being the vertical device. You have people who are still like, I want this like horizontal experience. We're almost having this fracturing of brands and then spaces of saying, hey, we're natively building for this app, or hey, we're natively building for this audience. It's too soon to tell for either. Even on shows that we're on, we're, as a live stream company, are building horizontal shows that then we are vertically live clipping. I mean, this is a really good example. We're about to do that right now. We're about to go and we have a horizontal live stream, and then we're gonna run our clips, and our clips are meant for like vertical, right? How do brands transcend both then? If TikTok is basically saying, hey, we're gonna go and have our own walled garden. This is ours now because we want to join the live entertainment space. But you still have brands wanting to ultimately connect to those audiences. What do you think that looks like then?
I think it's a really exciting time for any kind of service provider or production service, because they're going to just have to create more content. Yeah. And they're going to have to service the audiences in different capacities, which innately is going to mean more work, right? There isn't going to be... we all do, right? Because we're figuring this out. The brand is going to have to create the horizontal form. They're also going to have to create something entirely different to serve the native audience on TikTok, right? Because they can't put something on YouTube in the same capacity they're going to put on TikTok, because it's a different audience. It's a different voice, in my opinion.
So on that note, we have, in kind of pivoting a little bit and talking about the vertical content takeover, we have content creators who are doing more vertical movies. So obviously that's a really big thing, especially in Atlanta, the vertical content takeover of these independent producers. We're gonna have one next week who all they do is verticals. Have you seen that change how these studios operate?
Yes.
Or short form, vertical movies?
In general, studios, especially here in Atlanta and in Georgia as a whole, are looking for more opportunities for vertical integration as a whole, right? Pun intended.
Okay.
And that becomes having certain alliances. It deals with whether that's Trilith and American High, or Assembly with Ty Walker and Autumn Bailey Ford, who have their own slate of not only independent productions, but vertical productions as well.
Yeah.
And then fostering, not just as hey, come rent our stage space, but utilize our resources that are in-house, right? Whether that's Universal Production Services or an MBS. And then also, let's help you on development. And also, let's help you with your packaging and your marketing. And also, let's help you get this through distribution, right? Yeah. That's true studio system right there. It's just not the way that Georgia or Atlanta had been operating historically. And now, because of that need, they're shifting.
What are those creators specifically looking for? So, like some of the ones that I've talked to, a lot of them appreciate having pre-built sets because they're having to rinse and repeat. It's like my billionaire banker's daughters having a post-operate. I don't know. The titles on these get like super long. I don't know if you've seen the video.
Oh my gosh.
Wild, right?
And very niche with very massive audiences.
Massive audiences.
They need infrastructure, right? They need things to be a little bit more turnkey. So we're seeing pop-up creator studios all over. 42 studios opened not too far from here.
Yeah, I saw that. What are they about?
Basically, a space where creators can come and connect and create with pre-existing sets. Also, while their audiences can come and dine and be a part of the experience, and it becomes a little immersive in that, but not wholly controlled.
Wait.
Could get gray.
What?
Quick.
So it's a studio to film in, but also live functioning business?
Yes. Live functioning coffee shops, restaurants, convenience stores, theaters. Interesting. Exactly. It's really kind of a first mover in the space in its entirety. But I think that might be a phase two. Phase one is controlled spaces that are easy for creators to come and connect, that have great sets like this, that have good producers and production resources readily available, like at Assembly, with having or even, great point. They're bringing in their own production resources. Shadowbox has their own lamp dock, right? Their own production resources that are in-house, making it a little easier, right? And I think next level of that's going to become, in-house crews. So these people can come and they can just show up, right? Show up and shoot.
Interesting. I know that Assembly Studios was toying. Well, I don't know if toying is the right word. When they announced their spaces that they're going to have an area that looks like New York and a space that looks like France, I think that they said that they were going to have full functioning businesses that were going to be out of there. Have you been to those?
So their development is happening in phases, right?
That's also true.
So they're
another big thing that they're building at the amphitheater or something, right?
Exactly. What's servicing as their backlot or facades aren't traditional in the fact that they're operating as production offices and green rooms. So not other businesses, but that helps the productions not have to move, right?
Yeah.
No wheels on your trailers or your production studios. And that makes a big difference in your bottom line. So they're really trying to keep things in-house. And also, that shrinks minutes in your schedule from talent moving from one place to another.
That is true. The thought of having to move talent or then prepare your shots is very alien to me. And live streaming, when we're like, hey, here's a platform, here's a spot, like talent show up, we're gonna go live. You have the 8 hours of time frame, and then everyone pieces out and goes home, right? So that's definitely I can see the efficiencies there. I'll be interested to see how it works out with, you said U42 is what it is now, and a lot of these independent shops. Do you feel that there's going to be more of these small shops that are going to ultimately show up, or do you think those creators will grow up into the bigger studio spaces?
Both. Both. And I think that's going to make the small shops compete with the larger shops. But they're going to offer different things and they're going to have different budgets. But I do think that the big boys are going to start taking some of these smaller productions because they have to.
That I understand that. I mean, it's been we've all known that it's been since Marvel has kind of moved off, that obviously that's kind of changed the dynamic of how these studios have operated. I mean, even FQS in a way is centered for that small creator, but when there's a lot of productions happening, all the studios generally kind of win. When now with how we need to foster for creators, I can see where you're talking about there. What are the things that we need to be doing to foster more creatives? And one thing that a hill that I die on is that as Georgians, we need to be more fostering of original content of creators here and be more facilitating of that instead of relying on other influences that aren't here, like for Georgians by Georgians, right? What are ways that studios and companies like either us or the Trillists can be more prepared for those creators when you're looking at these international audiences of like where they're trying, and international creators, when you're at Cannes and you're at Toronto, bringing them here? What do we need to be ultimately providing to bring that type of stuff here?
Okay, so let's rewind.
Yeah.
It's really kind of the success of the film industry. We'll look at just film specifically in Georgia. Really started making its mark specializing in production services, right? Yeah. Soundstage space, great crew, and they could shoot the job, right? Then it went off in post and, nobody ever came back. Then chapter 2, more of an ecosystem, post-production here, resources here, additional infrastructure here. And now we're in chapter 3, which, okay, so what about the IP? What are we doing to fund, to develop, to really foster this ecosystem from the beginning, right? It's not just about tax incentives, but what are we doing to actually invest in that? That's
Okay.
key and critical. Really not only just having money here, but fostering the talent and the creators to build that IP here. LA was so successful because it owned the IP. Georgia needs to own more of its IP. And they might be able to do that, through policy and incentives the same way that they built the film industry here. Look at models like the UK or Australia where they get the bump for Australian producers, directors, actors, etc. Right? So maybe
That's a thing.
the bump comes from, yes, this is a Georgia homegrown project. That's a bump. Right now, we're not talking about the tax dollars leaving the state. We're talking about supporting the people who are paying taxes right here to create.
See, that's been my biggest rub with the tax credits for a while, is that it was built for things to come here, not things to be fostered or created here.
Well, here's the thing. It was built for where the industry was.
It's also fair. That's also valid.
And when that was built, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
LA wasn't here. There were no writing rooms.
That's fair.
There were no directors.
It's fair.
So it was smart. It brought projects here. Several of those people bought property, started fostering some projects here. It obviously made some huge economic development improvements with other studios popping up to really meet the need and command, right? Because they kept coming. It worked.
Sure.
But it's not going to keep them here when
Well,
there's other competition,
yeah.
right? So now it needs to evolve. It did what it needed to do, and now it's time for it to evolve.
Sure. Do you feel that regulation, or do you feel that we're having the conversations fast enough to institute change with how fast technology and filmmaking and the mediums are changing? Like, even in the conversations that we've had in the last, I would say, 2 years, I don't know if anybody was really ready. I remember meeting, what was it? A year and a half ago, we were at Trilith with you guys at an after party, and that was the first time that I had heard some dude being like, "Yeah, I make all my money just going and making these shorts for like these dramas and vertical dramas, and I put them on the internet, and people pay $1 episode." And I'm like, "Y'all are wildin'," and I did not know that was like a thing. And then a year later, that's like, oh no, that's like the de facto standard of like the trend that like everyone is talking about. And even now, what I just read this like 2 weeks ago, they're like, yeah, well, now with AI and how it became AI, it's cutting heavy into the vertical space, because now they're just creating a lot of these AI versions. They're not even going and bringing in some of the vertical, right? That it's transcending. So I guess the question that I'm asking is do you feel that regulation is keeping up with the times, and how can we better accelerate it, right? So that we're giving the studios and these creators the opportunities they need so that we can continue to have a thriving entertainment industry here. I know.
Such a loaded question.
It is a loaded question. I'm sorry.
No apologies. It's a very important conversation.
Yeah.
No, policy is not moving fast enough. Conversations aren't moving fast enough. That's no one's fault. And the conversations are being had, but the time it takes to be understood and the time it takes to have these conversations, have enough proof, evidence, and economic impact measurement, the data behind that forces the hand of policy for change. That can't keep up. That's the problem. It's not the problem of the conversations, right? Because everyone's doing the best they can to have the conversations and then understand, but then they need the proof. And by the time they have the proof, it's too late. That's the issue. That's why everybody's playing catch up.
Interesting. So how long? So I get where the proof is needed. That makes a whole lot of sense. What's the typical time horizon that they're like looking for to be like, hey, this is going to be something that's like benefit? And this is me out of ignorance, because I honestly don't know this. Is how long is a timeline that's needed in order to say, hey, that this proof works? And I think this is the same thing we're talking about with like TikTok and boxing right now. How many data source points do you need to go and say, hey, that this is a valid way to either market or consume content in which that we need to be more supportive of an initiative?
Well, that depends on the research company you ask,
Yeah.
right? There's no textbook answer to that because there is no right or wrong. But we can look at the history of it, right? So the last time that the film tax credit was under review by the state government, they formed a committee. That committee studied the economic impact for a year.
Okay.
For a year. And once they studied that for a year, then they started having conversations. Okay, well, we know in a year and a half how quickly everything can change. So by the time they actually have done this study, gathered the data, reviewed it,
Then get into a committee.
it's out of date.
Yeah, it's 2 years, 3 years down the line.
Down the line. It's just too slow. But that's, again, nobody's fault. That's just historically how it's been done.
And you don't want to institute laws in 2 months because then it's going to be sloppy work.
Well, exactly. You can't create policy with a crystal ball.
Sure.
That doesn't work either. So it's really just what's creating opportunity for good business that's measurable and hope that there's a comp. But the problem with creative industries is there is no comp. There is no comp. And that's why there's always been this disconnect between the suits and the creatives, right? There's no comp. There's no way of understanding. My husband works in finance. He doesn't understand what I do on a day-to-day basis. There's no comp for it, right? It's different languages. So creating policy around a bottom line and a budget, okay, that's one thing, but the business itself isn't comparable to anything else.
So navigating that bridge then from creators to finance. And you guys have fostered some of these before. I went to the one in January, February that you guys did at Assembly, where it very much was like going and having traditional, almost IP bankers, like very heavy private equity with content creators. What do content creators need to navigate that gap with? What do they need to be equipped with so that they can have those conversations, have these brands, or have these IB bankers of saying, hey, I have this content idea, or I have this thing, I have this audience, I need the funding in order to be able to execute the true vision. What do they need to be bringing to the table then so that these entities will be interested in executing, being okay with taking the risk? Because, I mean, aside from regulation, that's really the only other path that you have ahead.
Their own data.
Yeah.
A solid business plan.
Sure.
And an unfair advantage.
Unfair advantage.
Unfair advantage. Key and critical, I think, to a successful pitch.
Yeah.
For anyone, right? Anybody can figure out what their numbers are.
Sure.
Anybody can make a business plan, good or not, subjective, but they can do it. What's your unfair advantage? Because that's what people bet on. That's why so many of these people, they bet on the founder, not the business plan. Why? Because the founder has an unfair advantage. What is that? I don't know. And that's going to,
fair.
Right? That's going to depend on what the business is and who the person is. But you better figure that out. And if your business plan doesn't have an unfair advantage, is it a good business plan, or is it going to be standard? And if it's standard and it's safe, there's nothing wrong with that. But I wouldn't expect much more than
what
you're not going to get your moonshot.
Sure. Do you feel that the creative industry in Georgia is ready and adaptable to that currently?
Oh, that's a great question. And I will say this. Yes.
Okay.
This is a very exciting, very uncertain time for Georgia. There's been a major shift in leadership. Lee Thomas built an incredibly successful film office for the state of Georgia, made billions of dollars of economic impact. She's retired. Who now is stepping up into that position? We don't know. Kelsey Moore, former executive director of the Georgia Screen Entertainment Coalition, right? Now, again, all of these entities are film-centric, but the way our state has set up, the creator economy falls under that. There isn't a separate office. There isn't even a separate office for film or for music, excuse me. So I think it's important to understand what's controlled by film, and maybe now there's an opportunity to generate or create other entities, other understandings and recognitions on a policy level of distribution, right? So it's not just traditional on screen, but maybe there's a tax incentive for social media plays that are generating more views than box office. I think I'm striking some chords here with you, Cody.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I'm more interested in trying to find ways to better navigate the tax credit system with more social media. I think that there needs to be more that not all content. I think we're getting beyond the generation of just UGC content is UGC content. It's not just homies with the phone anymore.
Exactly.
Actually, people who have full-fledged productions, and those should be considered productions that qualify and work with the state.
Well, now that there's a shift in leadership, there's an opportunity for evolution in policy, and there's also a generational shift, Cody. Now, you, me, there's legislators our age that started out in the same capacity as a kid with a dream and built a business, right? But it's not just our mothers and our fathers anymore. It's us. And it's a new generation of leadership that's stepping up. And it's going to take that new generation of leadership to understand, not with a crystal ball, but understand what's changing, learn from the past, and put us in a position where we can capitalize on the present success.
Sure. I was just watching this comedian, what was it? This week or last week, and it was like an ode to millennials, who was like, it was a talking to Gen Zers and Gen Alpha specifically in TikTok comment sections and she was like, the reason why you guys hate us or hate on us in TikTok is because we're the only ones in TikTok in the comment section. There's no other generations that are there because they're not on the platform, right? And we get it, and we want to, and we feel you guys, and we feel that we have not been able to provide for you, but our backs hurt, and we are tired, and we are trying our best, and like we're there for you. And I think that we're finally getting to a point where, to your point, that we're starting to get in positions in the government where the culture, the values, the understanding of direction is changing, and there is this passing of the guard, so to speak, but it may take longer than all of us like. But it's happening.
It's happening, and it's not just the millennials taking positions in the legislature. Yeah. It's also millennials who are owning and operating their own businesses and entities and creating their own data, their own impact, their own opportunity, and being in positions where our voices can be heard.
Sure.
Because we aren't just the kids with a dream anymore. There's proof in that.
Sure. I mean, I know you're saying we're not just two kids with a dream. I still feel like I'm a little bit of a kid with just aspirations of the camera and being like, I'm gonna make cool content with my friends, right? I think there's still that culture vibe of through it all.
Well, which makes you cool. And okay, all you Gen Zers, you can cringe on that. That's fine. But in my opinion, that's what makes businesses like this not just aspirational, but accessible and authentic. And I'm so excited for what you yourself have built and how you're paving the way for the future of that.
We're trying to be a front runner in it, and trying to make.
You are. You're not trying. You are.
We're doing the thing. We are doing the thing.
You are doing the thing.
We're making it happen.
Could we sound more millennial? We're doing the thing.
We're doing the thing on a Wednesday, talking about content. Yeah, I probably need to have more confidence in that. Wrapping it all up in a bow. Then we've kind of gone from a lot of different topics there, from George Entertainment to vertical independent studios. What's the takeaway? What's the takeaway for you? If there's some people who are watching this right now, what are like the top 3 takeaways you think that they should be doing to prepare themselves for this new onslaught of ultimately vertical and the independent content creator who is here in Georgia that needs to prepare for this like next generation content?
Okay, well, there's never been a better time to be an independent creator.
Sure.
There has never been a better time. You don't need an agent. You don't need a business manager. Stop trying. When the time is right, they will come to you.
Sure.
That's very important, right? I cannot stress enough. Figure out your unfair advantage and leverage it.
Okay.
Your audience, your brother, whatever that unfair advantage is, leverage it. And do not take a no from somebody who cannot give you a yes.
Ooh, I love that. Do not take a no from somebody who can't give you a yes. I think that is the perfect one to end on. Jezlan, I really appreciate you coming in today on this podcast and being here in studio with us. We were so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for showing up today.
Thank you, Cody. I really appreciate it. And be sure to stay connected, whether or not you're in Georgia. And we would love to have you a part of our community on Georgia Entertainment. Find us next in Toronto.
Okay.
Early September. And then we'll be back on the festival circuit next year.
That is fantastic. Where can they find Georgia Entertainment just so that people who are watching can follow?
Sure. GeorgiaEntertainment.com and at Georgia Entertainment across all social channels.
Sounds great. Well, really appreciate your time. Thank you guys for tuning in to this week's Run a Show. We'll be back next week, same time, same bat channel. See y'all.